and that was one. Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Jessica, thank you, Leanne, thank you, Stearns, thank you, Amy, for joining the gifts that have been given you to make a phenomenal gift for all of us this morning. What beauty. Maybe we should just go home now. That's not what it's the moment for, is it? So I don't believe that I've ever felt inspired by the time change from daylight savings time to standard time or vice versa. I don't think that I've ever felt inspired by that change to explore within the context of worship the symbols and the metaphors that are embedded within the changing of the clocks and the transition of the seasons that they represent. This time around, though, for some reason, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, this time around, the changing of the clocks has grabbed my attention, and maybe it has caught your attention too. And oh, by the way, I would just want to remind you that you are getting older too. So often on my semi-annual walk around the house to change all of the clocks and then going out and trying to remember how in the world you change the clock in your car. When I'm doing that, the thought that comes to mind is, why don't they just leave time alone? The time remains the same. Only what we call it changes. The illusion works, though, because we all agree to it. At 2 o'clock this morning, we were told, and we agreed, that it was, in effect, 1 o'clock. That sort of diminishes the meaning of time, I think. It sort of makes you wonder if time itself is real, or if it's only an illusion. Thor Heyerdahl, the Norwegian ethnographer and adventurer, wrote, "I've never been able to grasp the meaning of time. I don't believe it exists. I've felt this again and again when alone and out in nature. On such occasions, time does not exist." And then in one of my all-time favorite songs, Delicate Ballads, written by a Chicago man by the name of Tom Dundee, in the song he defines time in this way. "Deep within there's a feeling that time is nothing but space, and between every minute and mile that is in it, somehow there is a beautiful place." Somehow there is a beautiful place. There's an assumption in the sentiment expressed by Tom Dundee that I embrace. The assumption is that being has a greater value and is more beautiful than not being. I suppose that not being has its place too, at least theoretically. But being has its place not only theoretically, but actually. We are here. As far as I can see, that has value. Being human allows us to look upon being, to look upon all that is. It allows us to appreciate the act of looking, the ability to perceive what is, as well as to appreciate the object, that which we are viewing. Our lifetime is this beautiful space we've been given by the unfolding, ever-expanding universe in which our being unfolds and expands within all of this infinite beauty. Between every minute and mile that is in it, somehow there is a beautiful place. However we might think of time, we also experience it as something of a vehicle, one that transports us from what has been to the present and from the present into the future. It carries us through space from where we've already been to now and then to where we will yet be. Time is the medium into which the narrative of our lives is imprinted. Time is an agitator, and it is the balm that heals all wounds. One of the great poets of the last century, Carl Sandburg, wrote, "Time is the coin of your life. It is the only coin that you have, and only you can determine how it will be spent. Be careful," Carl Sandburg says, "be careful, lest you let other people spend it for you." So we have it from one who has given the subject some deep consideration, that time is our most prized currency. Time is the distance we travel from birth to death. It provides the canvas of consciousness upon which we paint from the palette of our experience. It is the distance that we travel from our beginning until our end. Time is what we have been given. It provides the context of our being, at least as much as we're able to understand and comprehend that context through our so very human perceptions of it. The context is the given, and the content, that which gives color and texture, that which gives meaning to our existence, the content is what we gather up into the time of our lives. We might think that we can waste time, suggests author Alice Block, but that is impossible, she says. What we waste is ourselves. Time is arbitrary, and yet it's the universal undercurrent of all that is. It undulates, now diminishing, now in augmentation. Time is space, and so it is the distance. Some say the very longest distance between any 2 points. Time is the vehicle in which we have movement from then to now, from now back to some other then, from there to here, and then on to another there. It is the currency of our lives. It is the medium, the agency in which we redeem ourselves and one another. It is the space and place which each of us has been given for finding and making meaning through the ways in which we redeem it, by making connections, by extending ourselves for love, for the love of self, for the love of others, for the love of our planet. There's an inscription of some unknown origin on a stone wall at the University of Virginia. And some of you may be familiar with some of the phrases that are from this inscription. There was a rock band, a California rock band a few years ago that borrowed heavily from this text in the creation of a song. And so you might recognize from It's a Beautiful Day. Do we have any It's a Beautiful Day fans here this morning? I see 3 people recognizing It's a Beautiful Day. Oh, okay, maybe more. So, but the words that I'm going to read you are not the ones from the song. They're the ones that the song drew on from that wall in Charlottesville, Virginia. Time is too slow for those who wait, too swift for those who fear, too long for those who grieve, and too short for those who rejoice. But for those who love, time is eternity. Hours fly, flowers die, new days, new ways pass by. Love stays. Love stays. I remember very well an event that took place in this room precisely 18 years ago this coming Tuesday. It was the installation ceremony by which this congregation and this minister formally agreed to merge our ministries into a singular path that we would follow together from that moment in time to some point still somewhere in the future. My very good friend and colleague Joan Montagnes was one of the speakers here that evening. She took the walking microphone and she began by looking out at the congregation that was gathered and asking the question, "What are you doing here?" And it got people's attention. What are you doing here? What is it that you have come here to do? Tonight, yes, she said, but not just tonight. What are you here to do every night? What are you here to do every day? Joan was asking in that moment, what is the ministry all of you have come to this congregation to share, and how do you intend to hold up your part of that ministry? And then in a larger sense, Joan was asking, what is it that you have come here to do with your life, and how will you choose to accomplish that? I remember so well Joan asking those questions because I've internalized them. And they have been questions that I have held on to and asked myself over and again ever since that night. What is the ministry that I've come here to do? And more, what is the life that I am here to live? Asking myself those questions every now and then has been so helpful in gaining and regaining a sense of purpose and direction, especially when my focus has been less than steadfast. Another woman in Unitarian history, Eleanor Gordon, of the late 19th century out in the Midwest, another one of my very favorites. Some 100 years before Joan Montagnes spoke in this room, Eleanor Gordon put the challenge to the people of her time and in her congregation out in Iowa, and she puts it to us as well. Eleanor Gordon prophetically claimed that we were given life in order to find its meaning, We are given life to find its meaning. And the meaning of our lives is far too complex to be summarized in one grand overarching theme way too often. Perhaps later historians might look at some of our lives and from that retrospective be able to connect a theme. But we are left in the moment to discover, to claim the meaning and the purpose hour by hour, day by day. Hours fly, flowers die, new days, new ways pass by. Love stays, love always stays. If time provides us the gift of our lifetime, to make use of that time, to redeem it, is to give it over to love, for indeed it is love that stays. We might look out the window on a morning like this onto an autumn day which has no rain, no snow, is that nice? Which has no hurricane. This past week, though, we marked the passage of 1 year since we were visited by Superstorm Sandy. A lot of people not very far from here died. A lot of people were injured. A lot of people lost loved ones. A lot of people lost their homes. More locally, the losses were not so great, but were much more of an inconvenience, really. Still, we all felt the impact. We felt it. For me, in some ways, that event was reminiscent of still another experience, of even greater proportion that occurred back on September 11th, 2001. Both of those events came as a great surprise to all of us here. Both were devastating in so many ways. Both of them invoked the feeling of a sudden loss, the loss of life and property, and a loss of the rhythm of our days, and in particularly the loss of certainty, kind of a loss of innocence, a loss of confidence, and a loss in security. Some of our responses to both of those events were idiotic, particularly on the part of our government. 12 years later, we continue to be involved in wars for which there never was a cause. 1 year later, people in New York and New Jersey continue to be pawns in a political game that leaves those storm victims living on the very edge of subsistence, even still. But there were other responses to those events of Sandy and 9/11, responses that represent the kind of humane and compassionate values that religious people of any stripe would hope to provide the brightest light in the darkest hours. People everywhere, no matter their losses, reached out in support of others known and unknown. They sent or brought supplies and money and muscle and heart. A sentiment that I heard over and over so many times from so many different people during the midst and the aftermath of both of those experiences with this: it sure puts things into perspective, doesn't it? It sure helps you to recognize what's really important, doesn't it? How many of you said or heard those words in those experiences? To a great extent, time stood still during those events. To a great extent, that expanded sense of time, even while it was besieged by pain and suffering, was filled by individuals and communities redeeming their own sense of loss by fulfilling greater opportunities for nothing less than love, greater opportunities for their own participation in love, greater opportunities for their own growing sense of purpose and meaning through participating in love. Author Eudora Alice Welty wrote, "Events in our lives happen in a sequence in time, but in their significance to ourselves, they find their own order in the continuous thread of revelation." Here's the thing. It may appear as though this morning we were given the gift of an extra hour. The truth is, though, nobody can give you an extra hour, nor can anyone take it away from you. Those hours belong to us in the first place. They were given to us by life. And it's up to each of us to redeem them hour by hour, day by day, and eventually lifetime by lifetime. We can fail to notice just how essential those hours are to each of us until we are in the midst of a devastating experience, as we so often do. Or maybe we can give ourselves little reminders along the way, reminders like changing the clocks a couple of times a year. Maybe we can give ourselves little reminders that say, hey, this is it. This is it. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with this one precious hour? What are you going to do with this one precious day? What are you going to do with your precious lifetime? Sometimes our days are torn from the calendar, as Marge Piercy suggests, hardly touched. Or other times, touched so very harshly. Either way, and in all other ways, the possibility of joy still lies before us when, as George Bernard Shaw suggested, we use the time we have been given for purposes that are large and mighty enough so as to be worthy of this, the time of our lives. We are here together in this present moment, at the crossroads of time. We are here at this junction between what has been and what will be. And so I ask you now, what are you here to do? What is in front of you to do? Whatever it is, this is the time of your life to claim it, to begin it, to redeem it, and to live it. May each of us then come to recognize our purpose as a mighty one in the service of the largest good that we can imagine, in the service of all that is, in the service of that which we hold most holy. May it be so. May it always and every moment be so. Amen. Let's join together in singing one of my favorite hymns from our hymnal number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. W.E.B. Du Bois. Now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time, now are the hours of work, and tomorrow comes the harvest and the playtime.
Peace.
Henderson, the songs sung and shared in this holy hour of worship be with you now and in your days to come. As we extinguish our chalice, this worship comes to an end, and our service begins. Blessed be, and amen.
Amen.